The next morning, Daniel woke up to the dull ache in his hands. Bandages wrapped them tightly, and even the smallest movements caused a sting. Cooking breakfast for Leo was a slow task, but Daniel did not complain. He knew that pain was temporary, but the lesson from the night before would last a lifetime. Leo noticed his father's discomfort immediately. "Daddy, your hands still hurt?" he asked, his small voice filled with concern. Daniel smiled gently, trying to hide the pain. "A little, buddy, but it's okay. I can handle it." Leo sat at the kitchen table, watching his father carefully pour cereal and milk, his eyes wide with admiration. Meanwhile, the news from the previous night was spreading quickly. Television channels replayed footage of the fire and the heroic rescue. The reporter praised the bravery of the mysterious man who had saved the CEO's daughter. Faces in the crowd were interviewed, and some described a figure rushing through smoke, pulling the girl to safety. Daniel sat quietly on the couch watching, but he made sure Leo was sitting on his lap. He did not care about fame or attention. The important thing was that the girl was safe. Leo's little finger pointed at the screen. "Daddy, that's you," he said with excitement. Daniel glanced at the screen. The camera angle did not clearly show his face, but the silhouette was unmistakable to Leo. Daniel chuckled softly. "Maybe it is, maybe it isn't," he replied. Leo giggled and hugged his father tightly. "You're my hero," he whispered. Later that morning, a car pulled up outside Daniel's small apartment building. A driver stepped out and delivered a note addressed to Daniel. The handwriting was neat and precise. Curious, Daniel opened it. Inside was a simple message. "Thank you for saving me. Your bravery means more than words can say." Emily. Daniel read the note quietly, feeling a mix of pride and humility. He set it down and looked at Leo. "Someone I helped sent this to say thank you," he explained. Leo's eyes lit up. "See? People notice when you do the right thing." Daniel smiled. "Yes, buddy, they do. But the important part is that I helped someone in need." Later that day, there was a knock at the door. Daniel opened it to find a man in a dark suit, tall and serious, standing with a polite smile. "Good morning. I'm Mr. Barton," the man said. Daniel recognized the name instantly. He was the CEO of Barton Industries, the father of the girl Daniel had saved. "I want to personally thank you," Mr. Barton said, his tone sincere. "You risked your life for my daughter. I can never repay you enough." Daniel shook his head. "Sir, I did what anyone should do. I just wanted to make sure she was safe." Mr. Barton looked at him carefully, as if trying to understand the man who had shown such courage. "You have a kind heart and great courage. That is rare in this world. Please let me offer you something in return." Daniel hesitated. "I can't accept any reward, sir. I only did what was right." Mr. Barton nodded, impressed by Daniel's humility. "Very well, but know that your actions have made a great impression. Emily is lucky to have someone like you in her life, even if only for that night." Daniel felt a quiet warmth in his chest. Recognition from the father of the girl he saved was unexpected, but it did not change who he was. Days passed. Daniel focused on his recovery and taking care of Leo. His hands were healing slowly. Simple tasks were challenging, but he faced them patiently. Leo stayed by his side, helping when he could, showing concern, and learning a lesson in bravery and kindness. One afternoon, there was another knock at the door. This time, it was Emily herself. She carried a small box in her hands. Daniel was surprised to see her standing there. She looked nervous but smiled politely. "Hi," she said softly. "I wanted to thank you in person for saving me." Daniel stepped aside to let her in. Leo ran forward immediately. "Emily," he exclaimed. "You're the girl Daddy saved." Emily laughed gently. "Yes, I am," she said. She set the box on the table. "I brought something for you. And for Leo." Daniel opened the box to find a collection of small gifts, a handmade card, some books, and a set of puzzles. It was simple, thoughtful, and heartfelt. Daniel felt touched. "Thank you, Emily. This is very kind of you." Leo eagerly picked up a puzzle and smiled. "We can play this together, Daddy." Over the next few days, Emily returned a few times. She helped Daniel with small things like setting up the puzzles for Leo or reading a story with him. She was curious, bright, and surprisingly down-to-earth. Daniel was cautious at first. He knew she came from a wealthy family and lived a very different life. But he also noticed her sincerity and how much she genuinely cared about Leo and him. One evening, as Daniel cooked dinner with his healing hands, Emily watched quietly. "You're very brave, Daniel," she said. "Not many people would have done what you did in that fire." Daniel smiled humbly. "I didn't think about bravery. I just wanted to help someone in danger." Emily nodded. "That makes it even more remarkable." The small moments they shared began to form a connection. Emily was not just a girl who had been saved. She was a kind, thoughtful person who brought a spark of light into Daniel and Leo's lives. Daniel found himself looking forward to her visits even though he would never admit it out loud. Meanwhile, Leo learned new lessons from Emily's presence. She played with him, taught him small facts about the world, and encouraged his curiosity. Daniel watched silently, feeling proud of both of them. It was rare to see Leo so happy, and Emily's presence brought a sense of balance to their small apartment. One afternoon, Daniel received a phone call from Mr. Barton. "Daniel, I wanted to personally thank you again," he said. "Emily has been telling me about your family. She speaks very highly of you and your son." Daniel replied simply, "Thank you, sir. I only did what was right." "I don't expect recognition," Mr. Barton's voice softened. "It's not about recognition. It's about knowing that someone with integrity and courage exists in this world. That matters to me more than anything else." Daniel felt a quiet respect for the CEO. It was rare to meet someone who valued character over wealth or status. The days turned into a week. Daniel's hands were healing well and life began to feel more normal. But the experience had left a lasting impact. He realized that courage was not only about saving lives in dramatic moments. It was about consistency, humility, and integrity in everyday life. Emily continued to visit, and Daniel found himself enjoying her company. They laughed, shared stories, and slowly a friendship grew. Leo loved having another adult to spend time with, someone who brought excitement and curiosity into their routine. One evening, as they all sat together, Daniel reflected on the recent events. The fire, the rescue, the recovery, it had been a whirlwind. But it had also reminded him that life was fragile, and acts of courage, even small ones, could change the lives of others. He looked at Emily and Leo, feeling grateful for their presence. Emily, sensing his thoughts, spoke softly. "Daniel, I know this might sound strange, but I feel safer knowing you're around. You saved me once, but it feels like you've been protecting us in other ways too." Daniel smiled. "Thank you, Emily, that means a lot. But I only do what feels right." Leo looked up at Daniel with wide eyes. "Daddy, you're the best hero ever," he said simply. Daniel hugged his son tightly. "Thank you, Leo. That's all I ever want, to be here for you." Life began to settle into a new rhythm. Daniel continued his work at the shipping company, taking care of Leo and finding joy in the small moments. Emily's visits added light and warmth to their home. The city outside continued to bustle, unaware of the quiet acts of courage and kindness taking place inside that small apartment. Daniel knew that the fire had changed something inside him. He had faced danger, pain, and fear, and he had acted without hesitation. He had saved a life and in doing so had built a new connection with Emily and strengthened his bond with Leo. It was a reminder that bravery could take many forms, and that even ordinary people could make an extraordinary difference in the lives of others. As the sun set on another day, Daniel looked at his hands, now mostly healed, and smiled quietly. He had learned that courage was not always about recognition, reward, or fame. It was about love, responsibility, and the willingness to act when it mattered most. And with Leo and Emily by his side, he felt ready for whatever challenges the future might bring. Daniel worked hard every day. As a single father, his life was full of responsibility. He lived in a small apartment with his 6-year-old son, Leo. Daniel's job was not easy. He worked long hours at a shipping company, lifting heavy boxes and managing deliveries. But no matter how tired he was, he always came home to make sure Leo was safe, fed, and happy. Daniel believed that a father's love was more important than anything else. One evening, after a long day at work, Daniel was walking home through the busy streets of the city. The sun had just set, and the tall skyscrapers reflected the orange light, giving the city a warm glow. People hurried past, wrapped in their own lives. Daniel carried a small bag with groceries for dinner, thinking about how to make Leo's favorite meal, pasta with vegetables. Life was ordinary, and Daniel liked it that way. Suddenly, a loud scream echoed from a nearby skyscraper. Daniel froze. The sound was sharp, filled with fear. He looked up and saw smoke rising from the middle floors of a tall building. The smoke was thick and dark, curling up into the night sky. A group of people had gathered on the street, shouting and pointing at the building. Daniel's heart raced. He didn't think twice. He ran toward the entrance of the skyscraper, feeling a strange mix of fear and determination. Inside, the smell of smoke was strong. The air was hot and people were running in panic. Daniel could hear someone crying loudly from the elevator area. He pushed past the crowd and saw it. A glass elevator on the 10th floor was trapped between floors and flames were licking the edges. The emergency lights flickered. Inside the elevator, a young girl was huddled in a corner. Her hair was dark, her clothes singed, and her face was full of terror. She was only 12 years old. Daniel didn't stop to think. He knew that elevators could fail in seconds when fire spread so fast. He rushed forward, trying the emergency doors. They were stuck. The heat from the fire made his skin tingle and sweat pour down his face, but he ignored it. He grabbed a metal rod from the maintenance area and forced the doors open. Sparks flew and smoke filled the small gap, but Daniel pushed through, finally reaching the girl. "Come on, we have to get out," he shouted. The girl, trembling, looked up with wide eyes. "I'm scared," she cried. Daniel held out his hands. "I'll keep you safe. Take my hand." She hesitated, but Daniel's calm voice gave her courage. She grabbed his hand, small and fragile, and he pulled her out of the elevator. The heat was unbearable. Daniel could feel the fire burning his palms, the skin blistering under the pressure. He ignored the pain. Every second counted. The emergency stairs were too far, so he guided the girl through the smoke-filled corridor. His hands burned, but he did not stop. His only thought was saving her. Finally, they reached the emergency exit. Daniel helped the girl down the stairs, holding her close to keep her safe. Outside, the night air was cold and the fire alarm blared loudly. Firefighters rushed in with hoses, spraying water at the burning elevator. The girl collapsed into Daniel's arms, coughing but safe. Daniel looked at his hands. The skin was red and raw, and small blisters had formed. Pain shot through him, but he felt relief more than anything. He had saved her. "Are you okay?" he asked. The girl nodded, tears streaming down her face. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you so much," Daniel didn't reply. He smiled gently and patted her shoulder. "It's okay. You're safe now." He noticed the crowd around them, some filming, some clapping. He felt embarrassed but also proud. It was not an easy thing to save someone from a burning elevator. Most people would have run away. Daniel had done what he believed was right, and that was enough. The girl's father, a tall man in a dark suit, arrived at the scene. His eyes widened when he saw Daniel. "You saved my daughter?" he asked, his voice shaking with gratitude. Daniel nodded. "Yes, sir. She's safe now." The man, Mr. Barton, stepped closer and offered his hand. "Thank you. I don't know how to repay you. You risked your life for her." Daniel shook his head. "I didn't do it for that. I just did what I had to do." The firefighters took the girl inside for a medical check. Daniel stood by, his hands still burning and throbbing. He felt the pain now, a sharp reminder of the danger he had faced. But he also felt something else, a quiet satisfaction. He had done what no one else could in that moment. He had been brave. As the crowd dispersed, Daniel quietly slipped away. He did not want fame or reward. All he wanted was to go home to Leo, to clean his hands and cook dinner. He walked back through the city streets, thinking about how fragile life could be. One moment, everything is normal. The next, someone's life could be in danger. He realized that courage did not always come from strength or skill. Sometimes it came from love and responsibility. When Daniel returned to his small apartment, Leo ran to him. "Daddy, are you okay?" the boy asked, noticing the bandages on Daniel's hands. Daniel smiled and picked him up. "I'm fine, buddy. Don't worry about me." Leo looked at the news on the television. The reporter spoke about the heroic man who saved the CEO's daughter from the burning elevator. Daniel's heart skipped a beat. The camera showed a figure running out of the building, but the angle did not show his face clearly. Leo pointed. "Daddy, that looks like you." Daniel laughed softly. "Maybe it does," he said, holding Leo close. He did not want fame. He did not want attention. He only wanted to be a good father and take care of his son. Yet inside he knew that the world had seen his courage. That night Daniel washed the blood and soot from his hands, wincing at the pain. He wrapped them in fresh bandages and sat at the kitchen table, thinking about the day's events. Saving someone's life had changed him. It had reminded him of what truly mattered: family, bravery, and doing what is right even when it is hard. Leo climbed onto his lap. "Daddy, you're a hero," he said simply. Daniel hugged him tightly. "No, Leo, I just did what anyone should do. But thank you." Outside, the city lights twinkled as life continued. People walked past without noticing the small acts of courage that shaped their world. Daniel looked at the stars through the window and silently promised himself that he would continue to protect those who could not protect themselves. He had faced fire, pain, and fear, and he had not given up. For Daniel, that night was a turning point. It was not just about saving the CEO's daughter. It was about showing Leo that bravery could come from ordinary people. It was about reminding himself that no matter how difficult life might be, doing the right thing was always worth it. As he tucked Leo into bed, Daniel whispered a quiet thought. "No matter what happens, I will always protect you." And for the first time in a long while, he felt a sense of peace. The fire had tested him, but he had passed. He had proven that courage was not about fame or recognition. It was about heart, love, and the willingness to act when it mattered most. The next morning, Daniel awoke to his hands still sore, but to him it was a small price to pay for life. He dressed for work, prepared breakfast for Leo, and thought about the small ways he could make life better for his son. Somewhere in the city, the CEO's daughter was safe and grateful, and Daniel knew that sometimes the smallest acts of courage could make the biggest difference. Life had settled into a quiet routine for Daniel, Leo, and Emily. Days were filled with laughter, learning, and small acts of kindness. Daniel enjoyed watching Emily grow closer to Leo, seeing her encourage him, teach him, and care for him in ways that went beyond the ordinary. Yet beneath the calm, a new challenge was quietly forming, one that would test Daniel's courage once again. It began one morning with a simple phone call to Emily. Her voice was calm but serious. "Emily, everything okay?" Daniel asked. "Yes, Daniel," Emily replied, her tone steady. "But I need to tell you something important. There's someone at my father's company who doesn't like my ideas. They might try to cause problems for me, or even worse, use me to get what they want." Daniel's heart tightened. He had hoped that Emily's life outside the apartment would remain separate from theirs, but he knew the world was not always fair. Danger could appear when least expected.
"What kind of problems?"
he asked cautiously. Emily hesitated. "I'm not sure yet, but I've noticed unusual behavior from some of the people who work closely with my father. Documents missing, suspicious emails, even strange phone calls. I think someone is trying to take advantage of my position." Daniel frowned. He understood risk. He had faced danger before in the fire and had acted without hesitation. But this was different. This threat was hidden, silent, and unpredictable. Yet the thought of Emily, and Leo if he were involved, being harmed pushed him forward. He made a decision instantly. "We'll handle this together," he said firmly. Over the next few days, Daniel paid close attention to the small signs. Emily shared her observations. A colleague who asked too many questions about meetings, a delivery that was left unmonitored, and an employee who seemed unusually interested in Emily's schedule. Daniel listened carefully, piecing together a picture that was troubling. Whoever was behind this was clever, patient, and determined. One afternoon, Daniel took Emily and Leo to a quiet park. He wanted to discuss a plan without alarming anyone. "Emily, we need to be careful," he said. "This isn't like the fire. This is someone trying to manipulate events behind the scenes. We have to stay calm and smart." Emily nodded. "I know, I've been careful. But I wanted you involved because you understand courage and responsibility in a way I can trust." Daniel smiled slightly. "Then we'll figure it out together. Leo stays safe and we watch for any sign of trouble." The first real threat appeared on a rainy evening. Emily had stayed later than usual at the apartment to help Leo with his homework. As they walked back from the small library, a black car followed them at a distance. Daniel noticed it immediately. Its tinted windows and slow speed suggested someone was watching them, waiting for the right moment to act. "Daniel," Emily whispered, glancing nervously at the car. "Do you see that?" Daniel's jaw tightened. "Yes, stay close to me, Leo." He held Leo's hand firmly and subtly changed direction, weaving through smaller streets. The car followed. Daniel felt the adrenaline build, a familiar sensation from the fire, but this time it was strategic, not chaotic. Finally, Daniel led them to a small, crowded street. The car hesitated and then disappeared around a corner. Daniel exhaled slowly. "They're watching," he said. "But we lost them for now." Emily looked at him, a mix of fear and trust in her eyes. Daniel, I don't know what to do. This is dangerous. Daniel placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. We stay smart. We protect ourselves, and Leo, we do not panic. Courage is not just about facing fire. It's about making careful choices under pressure. The next day, Daniel began preparing more strategically. He installed small security cameras around their building, checked locks, and made plans for emergency exits. Emily helped, learning from his methodical approach. Leo was curious but cooperative, trusting his father's guidance. One evening, Daniel received an anonymous email. The message was short: "Stop interfering or there will be consequences." Daniel read it carefully, noting no threats toward Leo or Emily specifically, only vague intimidation. He didn't panic. Instead, he took it as confirmation that the danger was real and deliberate. "Emily," he said calmly, "someone wants to scare us, but we won't let fear control us. We stay alert and we act carefully." Emily nodded. She felt comforted by Daniel's calm strength. She had learned that courage was not the absence of fear, but the ability to act wisely despite it. The following week brought a more direct challenge. Emily was called unexpectedly to her father's office for a late-night meeting. Daniel insisted on accompanying her, even if only to stand nearby. Leo, though small, insisted he wanted to stay home and wait for them. Daniel arranged everything so Leo would be safe, reassuring him, "I will protect your sister and you stay safe here, buddy." At the office, Emily discovered the extent of the threat. A colleague, jealous of her influence and determined to manipulate company decisions, had been preparing to ambush her on her way home. Daniel's instinct kicked in. He stayed vigilant, observing exits, potential hiding spots, and suspicious individuals in the lobby. As Emily concluded her meeting, a man approached her. His voice was calm, but Daniel recognized the subtle threat in his tone. "Emily, let's talk outside," he said. Daniel stepped forward quickly. "I think she's fine right here," he said firmly. His presence was enough to make the man hesitate. He noticed Daniel's steady eyes and realized that Emily was not alone. "Who are you?" the man asked. "My name is Daniel. I protect her," Daniel said simply, his voice unwavering. The man studied him, then slowly backed away, realizing he could not intimidate someone so calm and determined. Daniel had no weapon, no physical advantage, but his courage and resolve created a shield stronger than any device. The man left, and Daniel ensured the area was secure before returning to the apartment. That night, back at home, Daniel sat with Emily and Leo. The boy was asleep, but Emily looked at Daniel with a mixture of gratitude and awe. You saved me again, Daniel. Not from fire, but from something hidden and dangerous." Daniel shook his head. "I didn't save anyone. I just made sure we stayed safe. Courage is not always dramatic. Sometimes it's about vigilance, planning, and calm action." Emily smiled. "Even so, I'm grateful. I trust you completely. Leo and we feel safe with you." Daniel felt a quiet pride. Protecting others, whether from fire or hidden threats, had become a part of him. He realized that bravery was not only about physical strength, it was about love, responsibility, and the determination to act wisely under pressure. The following days were tense but manageable. Daniel maintained vigilance while keeping life normal for Leo. Emily continued to help, learning from his careful methods and gaining confidence. Together they developed routines to stay safe, alertness to surroundings, secure communication, and thoughtful planning. One afternoon, while preparing dinner, Daniel reflected on the lessons of the past weeks. Courage was not always recognized. The fire had brought public admiration, but the hidden danger brought personal growth. He had learned patience, strategy, and the quiet power of presence. He had saved Emily not only with his hands, but with his mind and heart. Emily noticed his quiet reflection. "Daniel, you've taught me something important," she said softly. "Courage is more than a single act. It's a way of living. You live it every day and it inspires me." Daniel smiled. "Thank you, Emily. I hope Leo learns the same. Courage is about protecting, caring, and making the right choices even when it's hard." Leo, entering the kitchen to help with vegetables, nodded enthusiastically. "I want to be brave like you, Daddy." Daniel knelt and hugged him. "You already are, buddy. You just don't know it yet." The quiet moments of reflection strengthened their bond. Daniel, Emily, and Leo were no longer just people sharing an apartment. They were a team, prepared to face challenges together. Danger had revealed not weakness, but the depth of their courage and the strength of their connections. As night fell, Daniel looked out the window at the city lights. The black car and threatening messages were gone for now, but the experience had left a lasting impact. Courage, he realized, was not about fame or recognition. It was about love, protection, and the resolve to act, even in the face of uncertainty. Emily sat beside him, her hand resting lightly on his arm. "Whatever comes next," she said quietly, "we face it together." Daniel nodded. "Yes, together. And we will not let fear control our lives." That night, Daniel's heart was steady, his hands healed and his mind clear. He had faced hidden danger and had not faltered. He had protected those he cared about, demonstrating the quiet, unrecognized heroism that defined true courage. And with Emily and Leo by his side, he felt ready for whatever challenges the future might bring. Days had passed since the fire, and Daniel's life had begun to settle back into its normal rhythm. His hands were almost fully healed, though they remained slightly sensitive to heat and touch. He worked his shifts at the shipping company, lifted boxes, organized shipments, and made sure Leo's homework was done each evening. Life was simple, yet meaningful. Emily's visits had become a regular part of their lives. She seemed genuinely curious about Daniel and Leo's world, and she often asked questions about small things: how Daniel managed the apartment, what games Leo enjoyed, and what everyday routines they followed. Daniel appreciated her presence, but he remained cautious. He knew she lived in a world very different from his own. He had heard stories about wealthy children who could be careless or entitled, but Emily was nothing like that. One Saturday morning, Daniel was preparing breakfast when Emily knocked lightly at the door. "Good morning," she said cheerfully. She held a small notebook in her hands. "I thought I could help Leo with some drawing today. Maybe you could join too?" Daniel smiled and opened the door. "Of course. Come in." Leo ran to greet her, holding up a small pencil. "Emily, look what I drew!" he exclaimed. Emily knelt down beside him and looked at the page. It was a drawing of the skyscraper where the fire had happened, with a small figure in the corner holding the girl's hand. "This is wonderful, Leo," she said. "Who's the hero here?" Leo pointed at the small figure. "Daddy." Daniel chuckled softly. "I think Leo's right. I guess I was there." He felt a warm sense of pride, but quickly reminded himself that courage was not about recognition. He looked at Emily and smiled. "Would you like to draw too?" Emily nodded eagerly. Soon, all three were sitting at the small dining table, drawing, talking, and laughing. Daniel found himself relaxing in a way he hadn't in a long time. Emily was lighthearted but thoughtful, often asking questions that made him think. "Daniel, why do you care so much for Leo?" she asked gently. Daniel paused. "Because he's my son. He depends on me, and I want him to grow up knowing the world is full of people who care. It's important to me that he sees what love and courage look like." Emily nodded, clearly impressed. "That's rare," she said. "Not everyone takes responsibility the way you do." As the morning passed, Daniel realized something unexpected. He felt a connection with Emily, not just gratitude for her visits, but a genuine interest in who she was as a person. She was clever, curious, and surprisingly down to earth. Despite her wealth, she did not act superior or demanding. She genuinely wanted to know and understand the lives of Daniel and Leo. Over the next week, Emily continued to visit. Sometimes she helped Daniel with small tasks around the apartment. Other times she played with Leo, reading stories or teaching him small science experiments. Daniel watched them interact and felt a growing respect for her. He noticed that Leo laughed more, learned more, and seemed happier whenever she was around. One evening, Daniel and Emily were sitting on the couch after dinner, watching Leo play with his puzzle. Emily spoke softly, almost to herself. "Daniel, have you ever thought about how courage is not just in moments of danger?" Daniel raised his eyebrows. "What do you mean?" Emily gestured toward Leo. "Look at him. You protect him, teach him, care for him every day. That's courage, too. It doesn't make headlines, but it matters more than anyone can see." Daniel nodded slowly. "You're right. Sometimes the quiet things matter more than the big gestures." Emily smiled. "I think that's why I admire you. You save me in the elevator, yes, but you keep doing the right thing every day. That's more impressive than a single act of heroism." Daniel felt a warmth he could not explain. It was the first time in a long while that someone truly understood what it meant to live his life with care and responsibility. Emily's words made him feel seen, not just as a hero in a dramatic moment, but as a man who tried to do right every day. The following days brought more surprises. Daniel began noticing small gestures from Emily, bringing home-cooked snacks, leaving little notes for Leo, or simply asking how his day had been. It was clear she wanted to be part of their lives, but she did so respectfully without pressure. Daniel appreciated that. One afternoon, Daniel received a phone call from work. A shipment had been delayed and he needed to fix it before the next day. He sighed, rubbing his still-healing hands. "Leo, can you finish your homework while I sort this out?" Leo nodded and Emily offered, "I can help too. Maybe we can figure it out together." Daniel hesitated, but then agreed. They spent the next hour organizing the paperwork, checking boxes and preparing for the next day. Daniel realized that working together made the task lighter and even enjoyable. Emily was smart and observant, able to notice details he might have missed. During a short break, Emily looked at Daniel thoughtfully. "You know, Daniel, not many people would step into a burning elevator. I'm amazed by you." Daniel smiled humbly. "I didn't think about it that way. I just did what I had to do." Emily nodded, her eyes sincere. "I know, that's why it matters. Bravery isn't always about doing something for glory. It's about doing what's right when it counts." Daniel was quiet for a moment, considering her words. She had a wisdom beyond her years, yet she was also kind and gentle. It was rare to meet someone who could combine intelligence with empathy in such a way. He found himself enjoying her company more and more, though he reminded himself to remain cautious. He was responsible for Leo, and that always came first. One evening, while Emily helped Leo with a reading exercise, Daniel stepped into the kitchen to prepare dinner. He noticed Emily watching Leo with a small smile. "He's a bright boy," she said softly. "You must be proud." Daniel nodded, slicing vegetables. "I am. He's the best thing in my life. Everything I do is for him." Emily placed her hand lightly on the counter. "You're a good father, Daniel. Not just because you protect him, but because you teach him, guide him, and care for him. That's rare in this world." Daniel felt a quiet gratitude. "Thank you, Emily. That means a lot." Days turned into a week, and the bond between Daniel, Leo, and Emily grew stronger. They shared ordinary moments, cooking, playing, reading, and talking about life. Daniel realized that Emily had become part of their small world, and her presence brought a new sense of warmth and hope. One rainy afternoon, Daniel took Leo to a small park nearby. Emily had come along. The city streets were wet and reflective, and the scent of rain filled the air. Leo ran to the swings, laughing as he splashed through small puddles. Daniel and Emily walked slowly behind him. "You know," Emily said, "I never expected to be close to someone like you. I grew up in a world where people only cared about wealth and status, but you care about what really matters." Daniel looked at her, appreciating the honesty in her words. "Life has a way of teaching you what's important. I had to learn it quickly, being a single father. Leo taught me as much as I taught him." Emily smiled. "You're both lucky to have each other, and I feel lucky to be here with you." Daniel felt a warmth in his chest. Emily's words were sincere, and he realized that their bond was growing beyond simple gratitude or friendship. She had become someone he trusted, someone who could bring joy and support to their lives. As they returned home, Daniel reflected on the past few weeks. The fire, the rescue, the recovery. It had all led to something unexpected. He had met someone who truly understood him, and in turn he had become part of her life in a meaningful way. It was rare to find such a connection, and he felt a deep sense of gratitude. That night, as he tucked Leo into bed, Daniel whispered, "Remember, Leo, courage isn't just about saving someone from danger. It's about doing what's right every day, even when it's hard." Leo nodded sleepily. "I understand, Daddy. You're the bravest person I know." Daniel kissed his son's forehead and stepped quietly out of the room. He found Emily waiting in the living room, quietly reading a book. She looked up and smiled. "Good night, Daniel." "Good night, Emily," he replied softly. As he headed to his own room, Daniel realized that life had changed in a quiet but profound way. The fire had been a moment of heroism, yes, but the connections he had built afterward, the trust, the friendship, the warmth, were equally important. He understood that true bravery included patience, humility, and care for those around you. With Emily and Leo by his side, Daniel felt ready to face whatever challenges life might bring. He had learned that courage was not a single act, but a way of living, and with that understanding he felt stronger, wiser, and more hopeful than ever before. The days after the hidden threat had passed brought a sense of calm to Daniel. Emily and Leo. The black car no longer followed them. The threatening messages had stopped, and the office at Barton Industries appeared to have returned to normal. Yet the experience left a lasting impact on all of them. Daniel had realized that courage was not only tested in dramatic moments, like fire, but also in quiet vigilance and patience, and in protecting loved ones when danger lurked unseen. Emily's visits continued, but now they were less about caution and more about friendship and connection. She and Daniel had developed a rhythm together, balancing care, trust, and humor. Leo had grown even closer to both of them, feeling a sense of security and happiness that was rare for a child so young. One sunny morning, Daniel and Emily were walking Leo to a small park nearby. The air was crisp and the city was lively, full of the usual traffic and pedestrian bustle. Daniel carried a small bag of snacks while Emily held a notebook, planning some simple art activities for Leo. "Leo," Emily said cheerfully, "today we're going to do something fun. We'll make our own little city out of these papers and pencils." Leo's eyes widened with excitement. "Really? A city? Can I make a skyscraper too?" "Of course," Emily replied with a smile. "And Daniel can help us too." Daniel laughed softly. "I guess I'll be your assistant architect for today." They spent the morning sitting on a park bench drawing buildings, streets, and small parks. Leo carefully placed trees and playgrounds on the paper, while Emily drew imaginative towers and Daniel added roads and bridges. The three of them laughed together, their teamwork creating not only a paper city but a deeper bond among them. Afterward, they sat quietly for a moment, watching children play and dogs run across the park. Emily turned to Daniel, her expression thoughtful. "You know, Daniel, I used to think courage was only about dramatic acts, like saving me from the elevator or handling danger at my father's company. But now I see it's more. It's about your daily choices, your care for Leo, and how you handle everything with strength and patience." Daniel felt a quiet warmth in his chest. "Thank you, Emily. I try to do my best, but sometimes I worry I'm not enough." Emily shook her head. "You are. You've shown me what real courage looks like. Not the kind that gets recognition, but the kind that makes life better for others." As they walked back home, Daniel reflected on everything that had happened. From the night of the fire to the hidden danger at Barton Industries, he had learned that bravery was not a single act. It was a way of living, a quiet consistency that touched the lives of those around you. Emily's words confirmed what he had always believed. True courage was about love, responsibility, and action without expectation of reward. Back at the apartment, Daniel prepared dinner while Leo played nearby and Emily helped set the table. The small apartment was filled with laughter and conversation. It was a simple life, but it was full of meaning. Daniel watched Emily and Leo interact and felt a deep sense of gratitude. She had become part of their family, someone who brought joy, encouragement, and warmth into their lives. That evening, Mr. Barton arrived for a short visit. He had come not as a CEO, but as a father expressing his gratitude. "Daniel," he said sincerely, "I wanted to thank you again for everything you've done. Your courage, your care for Emily, and your devotion to Leo. It's more than I could have hoped for. You've proven yourself a man of integrity and character." Daniel shook his head humbly. "I only did what I thought was right, sir." "That's all anyone can do," Mr. Barton smiled. "Perhaps. But few people act with the consistency and bravery you have shown. You are an example, not only to your son but to everyone who witnesses your actions." Emily watched quietly, her eyes filled with admiration. She felt proud to be part of a world where such quiet heroism existed. Daniel, Emily, and Leo shared a calm moment together, appreciating the importance of family, trust, and courage. As the evening progressed, Leo grew tired and yawned. Daniel lifted him gently and carried him to bed. "Good night, buddy," he whispered. "Remember, courage isn't only about facing danger. It's about doing the right thing every day." "I will, Daddy," Leo murmured, already drifting to sleep. Daniel returned to the living room where Emily was organizing some papers for Leo's schoolwork. She looked up and smiled. Daniel, I wanted to tell you, I feel safe, happy, and inspired when I'm here. You've changed so much for both Leo and me. Daniel smiled softly. You've changed things for me too, Emily. I never expected friendship and trust to come this way, but I'm glad it did. Their connection had grown deeper over the weeks. They trusted each other, supported one another, and shared life in a way that went beyond gratitude. The quiet moments, the daily care, and the shared laughter had built a bond that was strong, steady, and meaningful. The next morning brought a surprise. Emily had prepared a small project for Leo, a scrapbook of their time together, including drawings, little notes, and pictures from their park days. She handed it to Daniel and Leo. Leo's eyes lit up. Wow, this is amazing. Daniel looked through it, touched by the thoughtfulness. This is wonderful, Emily, thank you. Emily smiled. I wanted to show you both how important our time together has been. It's a small thing, but it matters to me. Daniel realized that this was the essence of what he had learned from the fire and the challenges that followed. Bravery and courage were not always about grand gestures. They were about love, protection, and meaningful connection. It was about showing up every day for the people you care about. Over the following weeks, life continued in its steady rhythm. Daniel returned to work managing shipments and schedules. Emily continued to visit, helping Leo with schoolwork and sharing small adventures. Leo thrived in this environment, confident, happy, and curious about the world. One evening, Daniel, Emily, and Leo took a walk along the city river. The lights reflected on the water, creating a calm and beautiful scene. Leo ran ahead, skipping stones across the river, while Daniel and Emily followed slowly. You know, Daniel, Emily said softly, I used to think the world was full of people who only cared about themselves, but seeing you, watching how you protect and care for Leo, it gives me hope. Daniel glanced at her, touched by her words. The world can be harsh, Emily, but it's also full of people who do the right thing. Courage exists in many forms. Sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes it's loud. What matters is that we act when it counts. Emily nodded. And I've learned from you how important it is to trust, care, and stay strong. You've taught me more than you realize. Daniel smiled, feeling a quiet sense of fulfillment. The fire, the hidden threat, and the challenges that followed had shaped him in ways he could never have imagined. He had learned about courage, love, and connection, and he had shared those lessons with Leo and Emily. As they returned home that night, Daniel tucked Leo into bed once again. Good night, buddy, he whispered. Remember, courage is part of who we are every day. I remember, Daddy, Leo replied, closing his eyes. Daniel turned to Emily, who stood quietly nearby. Thank you for being part of our lives, Emily. You've brought joy, light, and understanding into our home. I'm grateful, Emily smiled warmly. And I'm grateful for you, Daniel. For your courage, your care, and your heart. You've shown me what real bravery looks like. Daniel felt a quiet peace. The fire, the danger, and the challenges had all led to this moment, a life filled with trust, love, and courage. He realized that true heroism was not about recognition, reward, or fame. It was about protecting those you love, standing up when it matters, and living each day with integrity. The days turned into weeks, and the weeks into months. Daniel, Leo, and Emily continued their lives together, stronger, wiser, and more connected than ever. They faced challenges with patience and strength, celebrated victories, and supported each other in small ways that mattered more than anyone could see. Daniel reflected often on the lessons he had learned. Courage was not always dramatic. Heroism was not always recognized. But love, protection, and integrity were forces that shaped the world in ways more powerful than fire or fear. As the sun set one evening, Daniel, Emily, and Leo sat on their small balcony, looking out at the city lights. Leo leaned against Daniel, smiling sleepily. Emily rested her hand lightly on Daniel's arm, and he felt a quiet joy he had never known before. For Daniel, this was the greatest reward of all. He had saved a life, faced hidden dangers, and built connections that mattered deeply. He had proven to himself and to the world that courage could take many forms and that true heroism came from the heart. And in that simple, quiet moment, Daniel, Emily, and Leo knew that no matter what the future might bring, they would face it together with bravery, love, and unshakable trust in each other.